Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. The new horizon moved slowly through space toward the planet below. It looked like a normal research ship from the outside. Most people who saw it thought it was just another human vessel doing science work. Jake had been the captain of this ship for 8 years. His crew was small, but good at their jobs. Dr. Lisa Chen worked in the science lab studying alien plants and animals. She was smart and always asked good questions about the things they found. Commander Pete Rodriguez ran the security team and kept everyone safe. He used to be in the military, but now he worked on research missions. The three of them had been working together for a long time. They trusted each other and knew their jobs well. What most people did not know was that their work was much more important than it looked. 40-3 years had passed since humans first met aliens. It happened when a big alien ship came to Earth and said hello. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Federation. They had 12 different species working together. They told humans they could join if they wanted to. Most species that joined the Federation made big speeches and wanted everyone to notice them. They demanded important positions and tried to make deals right away. Humans did something very different. They said thank you and asked if they could just watch and learn for a while. The aliens thought this was strange, but they said yes. So, humans sent out small ships like the New Horizon to travel around and see how things worked. They built research stations on quiet planets. They made trade deals for small things. They never asked for much, and they never caused trouble. Other species started to think humans were not very important. The Vorthak Empire had the best technology and the strongest military. They acted like they were in charge of everything. The Zephyrian Council was good at talking and making deals between different species. They thought they were the smartest. There were other species too. The Krellians were known for fighting and being mean to others. The Hive Collective worked together like insects and never talked to anyone else. Each species had their own planets and their own way of doing things. Jake had visited planets belonging to all these species. He always brought gifts and was polite. He asked simple questions and listened carefully to the answers. Other captains thought he was boring because he never tried to make big deals or get famous. What they did not know was that Jake was not just exploring. He was watching and learning about how each species lived. He studied their technology and their military. He learned about their politics and their weaknesses. Every human captain was doing the same thing. Dr. Chen was not just studying plants and animals. She was learning how alien bodies worked. She found out what made different species sick and what kept them healthy. She discovered which chemicals affected which aliens. She shared all this information with other human scientists. Commander Rodriguez was not just protecting the ship. He was learning about alien weapons and fighting styles. He studied how each species organized their armies. He found out where they kept their important military bases. He sent reports back to Earth about everything he learned. All across the galaxy, hundreds of human ships were doing the same work. They looked like traders, scientists, and diplomats. But they were all part of something bigger. They were building the largest intelligence network the galaxy had ever seen. The Federation Council met every few months to talk about important issues. Ambassador Katie Sullivan represented humanity at these meetings. She was a quiet woman who rarely spoke. When other species argued about trade or politics, she just listened. When they asked for her opinion, she would say something simple like, "We need more time to think about this," or, "We support whatever is best for peace." Other ambassadors thought she was weak or afraid to take sides. They started to ignore humans when making big decisions. This was exactly what humans wanted. Jake knew about the bigger plan because he was part of it. Every human in space was part of it. They had been preparing for something that might never happen, but if it did happen, they would be ready. The plan was simple. Learn everything about everyone, find out their strengths and weaknesses, build relationships, but stay hidden, be helpful but never seem dangerous, wait and watch. Jake looked at his crew working on the bridge. Lisa was studying data from the planet below. Pete was checking security reports from human stations across the sector. They looked like ordinary people doing ordinary jobs. But Jake knew the truth. Lisa had helped develop weapons that could stop any alien species without killing them. Pete commanded a network of human agents on dozens of worlds. Their quiet little research ship had enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The Federation thought humans were harmless. They thought humans were too weak or too scared to fight. They were wrong about both things. Jake had seen reports from other human ships. The Krellians were getting more aggressive. They had attacked some small planets that could not fight back. The Federation Council kept talking about what to do, but they never actually did anything. The Vorthak said it was not their problem. The Zephyrians said they needed more information. Other species made excuses or said they were too busy. Meanwhile, innocent people were dying. Jake wondered how long humans would keep watching before they decided to act. He hoped the Federation would solve their own problems. But if they did not, humans would be ready to solve the problems for them. The New Horizon continued moving toward the planet below. To anyone watching, it looked like just another peaceful research mission. Jake smiled as he thought about how wrong they were. 6 months had passed since the Krellian attacks began. What started as raids on small planets had grown into something much worse. The Krellians had conquered 4 Federation worlds and taken their people as slaves. They killed anyone who fought, back and forced the rest to work in mines and factories. Captain Jake Morrison received the emergency message while his ship was near the border world of Kepler 7. The message was short and terrible. The Krellians had attacked the human research station there. 847 people were dead. Men, women, and children who had been studying alien plants and trying to help make the galaxy a better place. Jake stood in his ready room reading the list of names. He knew some of these people. Dr. Sarah Martinez had worked with Lisa on biological research. Commander John Hayes had served with Pete in the old days. There were families on that station. Kids who would never grow up. Parents who would never see their children again. Lisa came to see him with tears in her eyes. She had lost friends too. Pete stood in the doorway with his jaw tight and his hands in fists. They all knew this changed everything. The Federation Council called another emergency meeting. Representatives from all 12 species came together to discuss what to do. One by one, they stood up and gave speeches about how terrible the attacks were. The Vorthak representative said his people were very concerned, but they could not risk a war with the Krellians. The Zephyrian ambassador talked for an hour about diplomatic solutions and economic sanctions. Other species offered thoughts and prayers, but no real help. When they asked Ambassador Katie Sullivan for the human position, she stood up slowly. The room got quiet. Everyone expected her to give another weak response like she always did. Sullivan stood there for a full minute without saying anything. The silence stretched on until it became uncomfortable. Some representatives started to shift in their seats. Finally, she spoke in a calm, clear voice. "We are reviewing our options," she said. Then she sat down. The other ambassadors looked confused. That was it? After humans had been killed, all she could say was they were reviewing their options. Some of them shook their heads. Others whispered that humans were too weak to do anything important. They were wrong. While the Federation Council argued and made speeches, humans across the galaxy were moving. Messages went out on secret channels that had been built over 40 years. Every human civilian in Federation space received simple instructions. Pack light. Report to pickup points. Ask no questions. The evacuation was smooth and quiet. Human families on trade stations, research outposts, and diplomatic missions simply disappeared. They left their jobs and their homes and got on ships that took them to safe places. Most aliens did not even notice they were gone. Jake watched his crew prepare the New Horizon for what was coming. Lisa sealed her research lab and activated security protocols. Pete opened weapon lockers that most people did not know existed. The ship that looked like a peaceful research vessel began to change. Armor. Plating slid out from hidden compartments. Weapon systems came online. The gentle hum of scientific equipment was replaced by the deeper sound of military power. The New Horizon was not what it seemed to be. Neither was Jake. His real rank was Admiral. He commanded the 3rd Human Fleet, which had been hiding in plain sight for decades. Ships that looked like cargo haulers and research vessels were actually warships. Space stations that seemed to study stars were really military bases. Pete was not just a security chief either. His real job was Admiral of Human Special Operations. He had agents on hundreds of worlds, people who looked like traders and diplomats but were really soldiers and spies. They had been watching and waiting for years. Lisa had not just been studying alien biology for fun. She had been developing weapons that could stop each species without killing them. Gases that made Krellians sleep. Sonic frequencies that confused Vorthak minds. Chemicals that made Zephyrians too sick to fight but would not cause permanent harm. All across the galaxy, other human ships were doing the same thing. The network that had been built to watch and learn was now becoming something else. It was becoming the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Jake stood on his bridge and watched the transformation happen. Officers who had pretended to be scientists put on military uniforms. Crew members who had acted like civilian workers took their positions at weapon stations. The bridge itself changed as combat systems came online. A message came from Earth. It was addressed to all human commanders in Federation space. Jake read it twice to make sure he understood it correctly. The children have been harmed, the message said. All units are authorized to remind the galaxy who we are. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect the innocent. Punish the guilty. Show no mercy to those who harm civilians. Jake sent a reply confirming he had received the message. Then he opened a channel to Pete, who was coordinating with human forces across 3 sectors. "How long until everyone is ready?" Jake asked. 12 hours, Pete replied. "Every ship is in position. Every agent is standing by. We have complete intelligence on all Krellian military assets. When we move fast, and we hit everything at once." Jake nodded. After 40 years of patience, humans were done waiting for the Federation to solve its own problems. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you killed human children. Lisa came to the bridge carrying a case full of biological weapons designed specifically for Krellian physiology. She looked sad, but determined. "I never wanted to use these," she said quietly. "I hoped we would never need them." Jake put a hand on her shoulder. "We all hoped that, but hoping is not enough when innocent people are dying." The Federation Council was still meeting, still making speeches about diplomatic solutions. They had no idea that the quiet, peaceful humans they had ignored for so long were about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the families on Kepler 7th. 847 people who would never go home. Children who had trusted the adults to keep them safe. The galaxy had failed those children. The Federation had failed them, but humans would not fail them. Justice was coming, and it wore a human face. The message from Earth was short and clear. Permission granted. Show them what happens when you hurt our own. Admiral Jake Morrison read it one more time, then activated the communication system that connected him to every human military unit in the galaxy. For 43 years, this network had stayed hidden. Today, it would reveal itself to the universe. "All units, this is Morrison," he said into the microphone. "Operation Righteous Fury is now active. Execute all planned strikes simultaneously. Remember, we protect the innocent and punish the guilty. Make them remember this day." Across the galaxy, ships that had looked like harmless civilian vessels suddenly changed. Cargo haulers dropped their fake hulls to show massive weapons. Research stations opened hidden hangar bays full of fighters. Space docks that seemed to build mining equipment started launching warships. The human fleet that emerged was enormous. Over 2,000 ships of all sizes, from small fast attackers to huge battleships. They had been hiding in plain sight for decades, disguised as traders and explorers and scientists. Now they showed their true nature. Jake, S ship, the New Horizon, led a battle group toward the Krellian home system. The ship had completely changed from its research vessel disguise. Heavy armor covered its hull. Weapon ports lined its sides. The bridge was now a military command center with tactical displays and combat stations. Dr. Lisa Chen stood at a science station, but she was not studying plants anymore. She was coordinating the deployment of biological weapons she had spent years developing. Each one was designed to stop specific alien species, without causing permanent harm. The Krellians would learn that humans could be merciful, even when they were angry. Admiral Pete Rodriguez commanded the Special Operations Forces from his own ship. His agents on Krellian worlds had been sending intelligence for months. They knew exactly where every military base was located. They knew which planets held slaves and which ones were just military targets. The human fleet moved like a machine. Every captain knew their job. Every crew member understood the mission. They had trained for this day in secret, hoping it would never come. But when it came, they were ready. The first target was the Krellian homeworld. The planet was protected by 400 warships, the strongest fleet in Krellian space. The Krellian admirals thought their ships were safe in their own system. They were wrong. Human ships came out of hyperspace from 6 different directions at once. The Krellians had time to send one distress signal before the human fleet surrounded them completely. 2,000 human ships against 400 Krellian vessels. The math was simple. Jake opened a channel to the Krellian fleet commander. "This is Admiral Morrison of the human fleet. You have exactly 5 minutes to surrender your ships and prepare to face justice for your crimes. If you refuse, we will destroy every military vessel in this system." The Krellian commander, a large, reptilian alien named General Scarth, snarled back at him. "You think your pathetic species can threaten us? We are warriors. We will crush your weak ships and take your planets." Jake closed the channel and looked at his weapons officer. "Light them up." The battle was not really a battle. It was a demonstration. Human ships used weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Energy beams that could cut through the strongest armor. Missiles that could track targets through hyperspace. Fighters so fast they seemed to teleport around enemy ships. The Krellian fleet fought back, but their weapons barely scratched human armor. Their tactics were simple and predictable. Humans had been studying them for years and knew exactly how they would react. In 6 hours, the entire Krellian home fleet was destroyed or captured. Not a single human ship was seriously damaged. The Krellian homeworld surrendered when human troops landed on their capital city. But Jake did not stop there. This was not just about one planet or one fleet. This was about ending the Krellian threat forever. Using intelligence gathered over decades, human forces struck every Krellian military base at the same time. They hit weapons factories, training, camps, command centers, and space docks. The attacks were surgical and precise. Military targets were destroyed completely, but civilian areas were left alone. On the 4 worlds the Krellians had conquered, human troops landed to free the slaves. They used Lisa's biological weapons to knock out Krellian guards without killing them. The enslaved populations were rescued and given medical care. Food and supplies were dropped from human ships. Jake stood on the bridge of his ship and watched. Reports come in from across Krellian space. Every military installation was either captured or destroyed. Every slave camp was liberated. Every Krellian warship was sunk or surrendering. The speed of the operation shocked everyone, including some humans. In less than a week, the entire Krellian military was gone. An empire that had terrorized its neighbors for generations was helpless. Pete quotes. Special operations teams had been perfect. They knew exactly where to strike and when. Krellian generals woke up to find their bases surrounded by human troops. Krellian admirals discovered their fleets were outnumbered 10-1. There was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Lisa quotes biological weapons worked exactly as designed. Krellian soldiers fell asleep when they breathed certain gases. Their equipment stopped working when exposed to specific chemicals. But no one died unless they kept fighting after being warned to surrender. The Federation Council watched in amazement as their quiet, peaceful human neighbors systematically dismantled an entire galactic empire. Species that had been afraid of the Krellians for centuries saw their oppressors defeated in days. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. Every species heard the same incredible story. The humans who never spoke in council meetings had built the most powerful military force in galactic history. The researchers and traders and diplomats were actually admirals and generals and spies. On the final day of the operation, Jake received a message from the last Krellian stronghold. They wanted to surrender. Their military was gone, their government was in chaos, and their people were afraid of what humans might do next. Jake opened a channel to the Federation Council. For the first time in years, a human was speaking first, instead of listening. The Krellian hegemony no longer exists as a military threat, he said calmly. All enslaved populations have been freed and are being returned to their home worlds. Krellian civilians are unharmed and will be allowed to rebuild their society under Federation oversight. He paused and looked directly at the camera. We are now ready to discuss the future of this galaxy, and this time everyone will listen. The transmission ended, leaving the Federation Council in stunned silence. The balance of power had changed completely. Humans were no longer the quiet observers sitting in the back of the room. They were the strongest military force in the galaxy, and they had proven they were willing to use that power to protect the innocent. The storm had broken, and when the dust settled, nothing would ever be the same. The Federation Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from all 12 major species sat in their seats, but no one spoke. They were all looking at the empty space where the Krellian ambassador used to sit. That species no longer had a government capable of sending anyone to council meetings. Ambassador Katie Sullivan walked to the center of the chamber. For 43 years, she had been the quiet human representative who listened more than she spoke. Today, she looked different. She stood straighter, spoke louder, and everyone in the room could feel the change. Fellow representatives, she began, we need to talk about what has happened and what will happen next. The Vorthak representative, Chancellor Drex Kovac, stood up quickly. He was tall and proud, used to being the most important person in any room. By what right do humans act without Federation approval? Your species has violated every treaty and law we have established. Sullivan looked at him with cold eyes. By the right of superior capability and moral clarity, Chancellor. You had the power to stop the Krellians from committing genocide. You chose not to act. We had the power to stop them, and we chose to use it. She activated a holographic display that showed images from the conquered worlds. Families being separated. Children forced to work in mines. Mass graves where people who resisted had been buried. While you debated diplomatic solutions, innocent people died, Sullivan continued. While you worried about trade agreements and political balance, entire populations were enslaved. We watched you fail to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Zephyrian ambassador, a silver-skinned alien named Counselor Thyra Melox, tried to interrupt. But surely you understand that military action requires careful consideration. We cannot simply attack other Federation members without proper procedures. Sullivan turned to face her. The Krellians stopped being Federation members the moment they started committing war crimes. You knew what they were doing. You had intelligence reports. You had testimony from refugees. You had evidence of mass murder, and you did nothing. She walked to her seat and picked up a data pad. Would you like to know what humans were doing while you held committee meetings? We were building the largest intelligence network in galactic history. We were studying every species, every government, every military force. We were preparing for the day when someone would need to act. The display changed to show star maps with human ship positions, communication networks, and intelligence gathering operations. The scope of it was incredible. Humans had agents and assets on hundreds of worlds. They had been watching everyone and everything. For 43 years we hoped you would prove worthy of our respect, Sullivan said. We hoped the galaxy's older civilizations would show wisdom and courage. Instead, we learned that you are content to let evil flourish as long as it does, not threaten your immediate interests. Chancellor Kovac slammed his fist on his desk. This is intolerable. The Vorthak Empire will not accept human domination. We demand a return to proper Federation governance. Sullivan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You demand? Chancellor, I think you misunderstand the current situation. The holographic display changed again. This time it showed the current positions of human military forces throughout the galaxy. Thousands of ships positioned strategically near every major world and space lane. Fleets that could strike any target within days. These are not requests or suggestions, Sullivan explained. These are the new realities of galactic politics. We are not asking for your permission to protect the innocent. We are informing you of our intentions." She walked around the chamber, looking at each representative as she spoke. "Humans want to continue working with the Federation. We believe in cooperation and mutual benefit. But we will not allow another genocide to happen while politicians debate procedure." The human demands were simple but revolutionary: complete military autonomy for human forces, the right to intervene when slavery or genocide occurred anywhere in the galaxy, full transparency from all Federation members about their military capabilities and political intentions, immediate humanitarian access to any crisis situation. In return, humans offered their protection and continued cooperation in trade, science, and diplomacy. They promised to defend Federation worlds from outside threats and to share their advanced technology for peaceful purposes. "You have 72 hours to vote," Sullivan announced. "Accept these terms and join us in building a galaxy where the strong protect the weak. Reject them and discover what happens when humanity stops being patient." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some species demanded more time to consider. Others complained that humans were forcing change too quickly. A few quietly began calculating whether they could afford to oppose the new human military machine. Chancellor Kovac stood up again, his face red with anger. "The Vorthak Empire rejects these terms completely. We will not bow to human threats. Other species must join us in resisting this illegal takeover." Sullivan looked at him sadly. "Chancellor, your empire controlled this galaxy for 200 years. In all that time, how many genocides did you prevent? How many enslaved populations did you free? How many times did you use your power to protect those who could not protect themselves?" She let the questions hang in the air. Everyone knew the answers. "Your empire had its chance to be the galaxy's protector," she continued. "You chose to be its overlord instead. That time is over." Over the next 3 days, representatives returned to their home worlds to consult with their governments. Emergency sessions were held on every major planet. Military leaders analyzed human capabilities and reached the same conclusion: resistance was impossible. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than many expected. 8 species voted to accept the human terms. They recognized that the galaxy had changed and decided to work with the new reality. 3 species abstained, wanting to see how things developed before choosing sides. Only the Vorthak voted against. Chancellor Kovac stood alone in his defiance, promising that his empire would find a way to restore the old order. He was wrong about that too. Within days of the vote, the Vorthak Empire began secretly contacting minor species and independent worlds. They offered military alliances and promised to share advanced technology with anyone willing to oppose human dominance. They believed they could build a coalition strong enough to challenge human power. Admiral Jake Morrison received intelligence reports about Vorthak activities from human agents throughout the galaxy. He was not surprised. The Vorthak had ruled for so long that they could not imagine a galaxy where someone else was in charge. "They are gathering a fleet," Admiral Pete Rodriguez reported during a secure communication. 800 ships from 6 different species. They plan to make a show of force near human space. Jake nodded. "How long until they arrive?" 12 hours. "Good. That gives us time to prepare a proper welcome." The Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace, expecting to find a few human patrol ships they could intimidate. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by 3,000 human vessels that had been waiting for them in perfect ambush positions. Not a single shot was fired. The Vorthak fleet was so completely outnumbered and outpositioned that resistance was pointless. They surrendered immediately, and their allies quietly went home to reconsider their decisions. Chancellor Kovac was forced to sign a humiliating peace agreement that placed his empire under human oversight. The other species took careful note of what happened to those who opposed the new order. Sullivan stood before the Federation Council one final time as the old system ended and the new one began. "We never wanted to rule the galaxy," she said quietly. "We wanted to be part of something greater than ourselves. But when you proved unable or unwilling to protect the innocent, we accepted that responsibility ourselves. We hope someday to return it to a federation worthy of the trust. 1 year later, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Unity Station, humanity's new military headquarters. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see ships from dozens of species working together on patrol missions. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The transformation had not been easy. After the Federation Council accepted the human terms, there had been months of adjustment and reorganization. Some species embraced the new order quickly, while others took time to accept that the old ways were gone forever. The Zephyrian Council had been smart enough to align themselves with humanity immediately after the vote. They offered their diplomatic skills to help manage the transition and became valuable partners in the new government structure. Their ambassador, Counselor Thyra Melox, now worked closely with human administrators to resolve conflicts before they became violent. 3 potential wars had been prevented in the past year through early intervention. Human intelligence networks detected rising tensions between the mining colonies of Beta Sector. Before they could explode into armed conflict, human peacekeeping forces arrived quickly and helped negotiate solutions that satisfied all parties. Dr. Lisa Chen, now serving as Director of Interspecies Relations, walked into Morrison's office carrying reports from across the galaxy. She had traded her biological weapons research for something more hopeful, developing new medical treatments that worked on multiple alien species. The Andorian plague outbreak is under control, she reported. Our medical teams arrived within 6 hours of the first reports and contained the spread. We saved about 50,000 lives. Jake smiled. This was what human power should be used for. Not conquest or domination, but protection and healing. Every time they prevented a disaster or saved lives, it proved that the changes had been worth the cost. Admiral Pete Rodriguez entered the office next, still coordinating special operations but now training mixed-species peacekeeping forces. His new recruits included Vorthak officers who had chosen to serve the greater good rather than cling to their empire's failed past. The Hive collective situation is resolved, Pete announced. They tried to enslave that pre-spaceflight civilization in the Outer Rim, but our rapid response teams were there within 12 hours. The collective retreated after we demonstrated our firepower. The developing species never even knew they were in danger. This had become the pattern. Human forces did not wait for committees or debates. When someone threatened innocent people, humans acted immediately. The galaxy's bullies had learned that their actions would have swift consequences. Jake remembered the days when the Federation would spend months discussing responses to crises while people suffered and died. Those days were over. Human military doctrine was simple: respond fast, use overwhelming force, protect the innocent, and minimize casualties on all sides. The results spoke for themselves. Piracy had dropped to nearly zero because pirates knew human patrols would catch them quickly. Slavery had been abolished on every world within Federation space. Genocide prevention protocols meant that ethnic conflicts were resolved before they could become massacres. Trade was flourishing under human protection. Merchant ships traveled safely through space lanes patrolled by human fleets. Scientific cooperation had reached new levels as species shared research under human-sponsored programs. Even military technology was being shared, but only for defensive purposes. Ambassador Katie Sullivan, now serving as the Federation's chief coordinator, had worked tirelessly to build the new government structure. Instead of the old system where powerful species dominated weaker ones, the new Federation operated on principles of protection and mutual benefit. The quarterly reports show continued improvement, she told Jake during their weekly meeting. Crime is down, trade is up, and we have had no major conflicts for 8 months. The species that were hesitant to accept the changes are starting to see the benefits. Not everyone was happy with the new order. Some Vorthak still resented their loss of dominance. A few minor species complained that humans were too controlling, but most beings in the galaxy appreciated living in a safer, more peaceful universe. The real test came when the Corvani Empire, a species from outside Federation space, decided to invade the Outer Rim territories. They had heard about the change in galactic politics and wanted to test human resolve. The Corvani, brought a massive fleet of 1,500 ships and expected to conquer several systems before anyone could respond. They were used to fighting the old Federation, which took months to organize any military response. They were not prepared for the new reality. Human forces detected the invasion fleet while it was still in hyperspace. By the time the Corvani arrived, at their first target, they found 2,000 human ships waiting for them. The battle lasted less than 4 hours before the surviving Corvani ships retreated to their own territory. Jake had commanded the defense personally. The message sent to the galaxy was clear. Humanity would defend Federation space against any threat, internal or external. The Corvani never tried to invade again. As the first anniversary of the human intervention approached, Jake found himself thinking about how much had changed. The galaxy was safer, more prosperous, and more just than it had ever been. But the cost had been high. Humans could never again be the quiet observers they had once been. They carried the responsibility of protecting billions of lives across thousands of worlds. Every decision they made affected entire civilizations. It was a burden no species had ever carried before. Lisa joined him at the viewing window, watching the mixed species crews working together on the station. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked quietly. Jake considered the question carefully. A year ago, children were dying in Krellian slave camps while politicians debated procedures. Today, those children are free and going to school. I think that answers your question. Pete walked up beside them, looking out at the peaceful scene. "The galaxy still has problems," he said. "There are still bad people doing bad things, but now they know someone is watching, someone who will act." The three friends stood together in comfortable silence. They had been through so much together. The years of secret preparation, the violence of the intervention, and the hard work of building something better from the ruins of the old system. A communication alert sounded, and Jake walked to his command station. It was a message from a human patrol ship in the Centaurus sector. They had detected signs of a possible slave trading operation and requested permission to investigate. Jake approved the mission immediately. This was what the new order was about. Rapid response to protect those who could not protect themselves. No committees, no debates, no delays while innocent people suffered. As the patrol ship moved to investigate, Jake thought about the old Federation and how it would have handled this situation. They would have formed a committee to study the problem. They would have held hearings and debates. They would have written reports and made recommendations. Meanwhile, people would have remained in chains. The new Federation worked differently. When humans said they would protect the innocent, they meant it. When they promised swift justice for those who harmed others, they delivered. The galaxy had learned that human words were backed by human actions. Jake returned to the viewing window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, families were safe because of decisions made in this command center. Children were free because humans had chosen to act when others would not. Entire worlds slept peacefully under the protection of human fleets. The message had been sent and received throughout the galaxy. Humans were silent no longer. Their patience had ended, their preparation was complete, and their resolve was absolute. They had spoken in the only language that bullies and tyrants truly understood. The language of overwhelming, unstoppable consequence. And the galaxy would never forget that conversation.